And we are live.
All right. Hello, good peoples of the internet. Welcome to the Nerdy News Hour. It's like the news, but for nerds. As always, I'm sitting down with a couple of awesome nerds. Only one of them is an unfamiliar face. That's right. We've got a special guest in the house. James from the Rebel Scum Podcast is joining us. So, James, even though it's going to take a minute for people to get in here, and maybe we should drag this out, but tell us about yourself and talk to the peeps about Rebel Scum. And also, and we'll get to this later, but how do you feel about sand?
Well, it's rough. It's coarse. And it gets everywhere. Actually, I do have similar feelings to sand as Anakin does.
I actually do as well. So.
Yeah, I need one of those showers immediately after the beach. I'm like, no, I don't want it in my shoes, on my sandals, and it's in your shorts. And I went to Dominican Republic a couple years ago, and I just went to the beach the day of my flight. And on the way back, security had to search my luggage because they got one of those random searches of the full luggage, and they pulled out the 9 beers that I was bringing back, and they took out my bathing suit, and they started smelling the sand that was still in the shorts, and I was like, oh man, I just want to get home. Yeah, it was.
That is weird.
It was. I duct taped my. It was, but I did duct tape my luggage shut, so maybe it looked a little suspicious.
Yeah, no, that definitely looks suspicious.
I had my luggage explode once coming back from Los Angeles to Toronto where I live, and it was so ever since then I've duct taped my luggage everywhere.
Oh, you mean like it overflowed or whatever?
Well, right before I got to the airport, I shut it, and it just the zipper ripped open, and the clothes burst. I was like, oh,
yeah, you
man,
definitely don't want to talk about your luggage exploding. I know, exploding. If you're worried about it getting searched, man.
Yeah, I guess that was the wrong
NSA is watching this.
Well, they do sell saran wrap, but it's way too expensive. So I use some duct tape. I put it around. That was fun. But yeah, the Rebel Scum Podcast is a podcast I do with my friend Brock. We talk about Star Wars. We've been doing it since August, I think, and we've been on YouTube for a little while, and we literally just talk about Star Wars and whatever's in the news, and we make things up sometimes too.
Yeah, which is awesome. And honestly, I stumbled. Google just put your stuff in front of my face one day. I want to say a couple months ago or something, or maybe it put my stuff in front of you, because I remember getting a comment from you guys on the Den of Nerds, and then checking out your videos or whatever. And I absolutely love what you guys do. I know we've talked about this off air and stuff.
Thank you.
But yeah, if you guys like Star Wars the way I like Star Wars, and you're looking to just hang out with some dudes and talk about Star Wars, go check out Rebel Scum Podcast. Their YouTube channel is awesome, and I'm going to be doing collaborations with them.
You've been on a couple.
Yeah. When we were in Celebration, we met up at Celebration. We did a debate, which I totally should have won. But I feel like some of the subscribers, I looked in the comment section, I think some of the subscribers just really like Andrew, a home field advantage I feel he had.
I think that's true too, but the other thing I've noticed with our subscribers is a lot of them are prequel lovers or prequel fans. They grew up, they were kids during the prequel era, and so and I defend the prequels a lot, and I always expect to get the hate, right? That's kind of what I'm actually hoping for. But instead I get, you're right, I love this, I love that. I'm like, this is strange. It's so strange. And then a lot of them come to us too because it's refreshing that people don't bash on the. It's really easy to bash on the prequels.
That's true. Oh yeah,
it's so
super easy.
And I think some of them like come in that we don't. But it was the CG versus practical effects.
Yeah.
And I think most people. Well, yeah, it's weird. The demographic. If you look at it, the older ones are now practical, and the younger kids are CG, and I think most are in the middle, though. Use both. Yeah, we won't say who won the debate because it was you, but.
Well, it's funny. And this is something you guys kind of talked about in some of your podcasts too. Was that was one of the cool things about Celebration, was that it really felt like everybody was just celebrating all of Star Wars, and there wasn't a lot of prequel hate actually. So that was pretty.
Actually, my friend Rob, who does the podcast, who comes on the podcast once in a while and does those debates, he's not a huge prequel guy. But the Celebration made him want to watch the prequels.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they played the music a lot. They played prequel music quite a bit.
The music's dope, for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's really good, Yeah, so.
All right, well, before we get too off topic, Anime Dan is here, as always, as well. Anime Dan, what's been going on with you? How's the nerdy week been, brother?
It's been good. I'm ramping up for the new Pokemon season. There's a new set coming out in like 10 days or so everyone at my club is hyped for that. At the same time, I'm working on my What the Fuck series for the Den of Nerds. And I know it's taken me a little bit longer than I said last week, but it's a two-parter. The comic is literally a two-parter, and I'm
nice.
Just, it's the first time I've done this, so I'm like, do I make a two-part video? Do I jam it all into one? So I'll get that to you, I promise. It's worth the wait.
And I'm sure it's going to be dope. I raved about the first video, and honestly, like, that's what's kind of cool about, you know, what we've been doing and stuff is, like, honestly, like, I enjoy your guys' content a lot. Like, Justin's videos are awesome. Your What the Fuck video is hilarious. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, which will be dope. Speaking of which, Justin is not with us, unfortunately, but he sends his love. He's working on a bunch of different video game stuff. His Mass Effect Andromeda review is actually going up today. It's actually going to happen.
There it is.
Yeah, I know, right? And you know what the thing is? Like, it is totally Justin's fault that that's not up. It has nothing to do with me not editing it and uploading it. So whatever he says on social media is a lie. And just because I like kind of being a dick, anybody who's watching right now, please feel free to ask any really pertinent questions to Justin, just because he will not be able to answer them, because obviously, which I think will be pretty fun.
A whole bunch of Justin-oriented questions.
Yes, which will be awesome, and we can ridicule him for it later. But are you guys ready to get into the first topic?
I am super ready. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, this topic's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so first topic of the day, guys, Scargate. Hashtag Scargate. It's a real thing. So, the internet, let's be honest, is a mostly terrible and heinous place. It reared its ugly head most recently when the hashtag Scargate became a thing. If you don't know what Scargate is, allow us to inform you. The position of the scar on Kylo Ren's face from a wound he receives at the end of The Force Awakens has been moved, as is shown in the trailer for The Last Jedi. This caused everyone on the internet to lose their fucking minds. Director of the film, Rian Johnson, took ownership of the move, saying on Twitter that it was his decision to move the scar, citing the fact that it would have looked goofy in its original position. This caused everyone to freak out. I was super surprised at how many people were upset by this. Some of these people, I really respect their opinion, and they're big players in the Star Wars commentary world. So I thought this would be a perfect topic to cover, given the fact that James is with us. James, I haven't asked you about how you feel about this topic, so let's get right into it. Do you think Scargate is a bunch of crap, or do you think the outrage is warranted?
I think Scargate is blasphemous. No, I don't have a problem with the moving of the scar whatsoever. In fact, I think the bigger issue now is, I guess he's not going to be wearing that mask, that helmet anymore.
Right.
Kylo's going to be like, if you look, Disney, Lucasfilm, they were pushing the toys unmasked Kylo a lot after The Force Awakens came out. And isn't like that, to me, like, that was a cool design. Their marketing was all based on Kylo Ren's look, his face. And now we see it shattered in the trailer, and now all of a sudden, it's a scar, and it does look a little goofy if you look at the pictures from The Force Awakens and designs and stuff like that. It looks cool over the eyes. The Lion King did it fine.
Yeah,
for me, it's such a small. It happens so quickly in The Force Awakens. That's hard to begin with. That how many people actually really paid attention to where? Obviously, the hardcore fans analyzed the crap out of where the scar was on his face, but who goes in there looking, well, he got the scar across his nose and down his... No, it looked totally cool in that trailer for the split second we saw him with that lightsaber.
Right.
So I have no problem with that. I think for me, it's like, so we're not going to see that mask anymore? That's
really probably more of an issue for sure. You know, it's funny, like, I totally agree with the fact that it's barely in the movie, and the lighting's all weird. And honestly, when I first saw The Force Awakens, I didn't even think that was a cut on his face. I thought it was blood from the wound on his shoulder. So I actually didn't even think that he was cut. And like, if you look at some of the images that people did with like, there's all these promo things, and they like put that nasty scar there and whited out his eye and all that, it did look kind of dumb. Like, I wasn't a fan of where that was at.
And now if you're going to do a full movie without him wearing that, it's got to look cool, you know. You gotta sell toys, and you want people to believe what's happening on the screen and not be distracted by some gaping wound over his nose.
I know. Yeah, I totally agree. Agree. So, Dan, what do you think about Scargate, man? Is it total crap, or do people have right to be upset about this?
You know, I thought it was really funny when you first told me about this. Now I gotta look up Scargate and people being outraged about them moving a scar. Right. And I just went on Twitter, and in the original Twitter post where the guy's like, "Yeah, it was my call. I moved it because it's goofy." Someone was like, "Okay, you can move it, but it won't be Kylo Ren's scar anymore," or something like destroying the Star Wars canon. And in response, he just posts a picture of the Emperor from Empire Strikes Back, because it was totally different for A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, and then in Return of the Jedi, it's the Emperor we all know. So it's like, this is the smallest thing to be upset about, I think. Like, the opening scroll could have said Kylo Ren died in between two movies, and it's like, all right, are you going to say that's not canon? They can do whatever they want,
right.
Man. It's their movie.
Yeah. I know. It's, that's such a fair point. It's so ridiculous. And we got a cool little prop thing coming up, too, where we're going to actually put a scar on Kylo's face, which is going to be really fun. And we'll get to that in a second. But my thing is, like, dude, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, this is an example of people freaking out on the internet. I feel like just to freak out about. And what really surprised me was like people like Dash Star, people like Stupendous Wave, people that are like big players in the YouTube Star Wars community. Like, they were running with this. Like, dude, when I watched the Dash video, he seemed legitimately upset. And I read some things on Twitter. You know, Twitter's Twitter, right? But I read some things on Twitter with people being like, "This so-called director," you know how?
Oh my god, so-called.
I was like, what? First of all, dude, Rian Johnson is my absolute homeboy after Celebration. Like, the man is the realest. So, like, that kind of upset me. But, yeah, like, just so ridiculous, the outrage over this thing.
I didn't know it was called Scargate till you sent this. Yeah. And I knew that it was an issue, but I didn't realize Scargate's fantastic. What a name.
I know,
it's
dude,
so ridiculous.
The internet is so ridiculous with this sort of stuff, but I couldn't decide if people were actually like legitimately upset or if it was like the satirical kind of, you know what I mean? It would appear they're pretty upset.
So I got the picture of just like the before and after, essentially, the end of The Force Awakens, and the little bit of a clip we saw from The Last Jedi, just to show the whole where they're moving it to and from. You can see it, they just kind of slide it a little bit to the right, so it goes over his eye.
Yeah,
and
for
that,
sure.
You know, that inch and a half is what's causing everyone to freak out. Like, the Star Wars canon thrown to the wind, continuity destroyed. Too exaggerated.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you know what else, too, is like, I thought about this. You know, there's a lot of diegetic ways for them to explain the move. Like, if he was in Bacta or something, perhaps, you know, it adjusted it as he was healing or something. There could even be, like, what if he went into Bacta and completely healed that wound? And that scar that we're seeing in the Last Jedi trailer is a completely different scar. You know what I mean? Like, there's all kinds of things that could happen, but, you know, people are freaking out about it.
Yeah, I think at this point, since the guy said, you know, we did move it for aesthetic purposes, now it feels kind of hollow, I guess, if they explain it away in the movie, because it's like, well, you moved it because you didn't like where it looked, but that's how movies are made. Like, that quite often is part of the aspect of movies too. It's like the technical requirements or restrictions to the aesthetic side.
Yeah, fair point. You know, it's funny, and I actually heard some stuff, because, you know, like, obviously people like James and I are obsessed with this, so we dissect it all and we like go into it deep and all that. But I heard these rumors that Rian Johnson was actually trying to get JJ to change some things in The Force Awakens that would have helped him explain some things for his next two movies, and JJ was like not about that life. So I wonder if this is one of those things, and Ryan's just like, well, you know what, forget you, JJ, I'm moving the scar. You know what I mean? Like, James, what do you think about that? Did you ever hear anything about that?
Yeah, I know that he did change some things for him, and they kept some things out of the movie. I don't think the scar was one of them. I think it was one of those things where they did the scar. Because, you know what, I don't think you would think about how it's going to look in a future movie. I think you would be like, oh, that scar will be cool on his face. and then the placement of the scar. Maybe they should have thought about that in The Force Awakens, though. That's something they could have talked about, definitely. But I think that's part of what you just said about J.J. Abrams saying no to things. I think that's part of him as a director's downfall when it comes to things. Like, I love The Force Awakens, but there's so many weird questions that don't need to be questions, Like, there's just things that, like, you could have just done something simple.
Yeah.
But, yeah, for me, I don't know if the scar was one, was one of the cover, although it would be funny if, no, I'm not moving the scar. You're crazy.
I know. It could have been a thing. I do want to address the chat real quick. First of all, Joe Oreo, what's up, Joe? Says that J.J. Abrams is a dumpster fire. This is a running theme with me and Joe. Joe we like to throw this dumpster fire word around. So what's up, brother? Good to see you. And Mike asks, or he's like, amazing discussion. He didn't know Scargate was a thing. And he asks if we hope as much as he does that Finn will be more relevant and Jedi-like. So we might go a little off the rails here, but I do want to address that question. What do you think, James?
I think he's going to be more relevant for sure. I don't think he's going to be a Jedi at all. I don't. I think there's a lot of talk that he was supposed to be a Jedi because he had scenes with a lightsaber that were cut. I don't think he was ever. I personally don't think he was ever meant to be a Jedi. I think we saw him with that lightsaber as a red herring because Rey was always going to be our new hero that we're going to follow. And I don't know if it had to do with, because she was a female and they didn't want that or not. I'm not going to even touch that topic.
Right.
But I think mostly it was they wanted to keep the story a secret. And he gets the lightsaber, halfway through, fairly early on. He's just given it. So it's easy for them to tell us that. And I think it's going to be way more relevant, though, even from that panel at Celebration. They were talking about him and that new Rose character together. I think Rose. that's gonna be your Han and Leia from Empire Strikes Back story. Not to compare it to Empire Strikes Back because I also don't think it's gonna be Empire Strikes Back, but that's gonna be their storyline. I think they're gonna be 1/3 of the story for sure is gonna be Finn.
Yeah, Dan, what do you think? You think Finn's gonna be more relevant, or you think he'll get more Jedi-esque in Episode 8?
I do think so, yeah. I think, maybe not more Jedi-esque. They call it The Last Jedi, because I'm in the camp that they're going to move on, thematically, I guess you could say, or, to a different ideology, like maybe the gray thing, or just, a more neutral aspect. And I could definitely see Finn being one of the first, people to join that kind of a thing.
Oh, that's cool,
idea,
yeah, I haven't thought about that.
Everyone's a little bit Force sensitive. You don't have to be, a monk. You can just be a soldier kind of a deal. And, he picked up the lightsaber and he wasn't, bumbling around with it, you know what I mean? He was like, I can sword fight, so...
Yeah, man, he even held his own against Kylo towards the end of the movie, yeah.
They did mention there's a few books where they talk about stormtroopers have training with weapons to counter lightsabers, so not to ruin...
the traitor baton.
Yeah, the traitor baton, that's what they were taught, so they kind of have sword fighting technique. He is skilled with it for sure, though.
Ooh, interesting question from Joe talking about Kyber Crystal. Joe, I know you might be doing stuff, but hang on to that question, brother, because we're talking about Luke Skywalker's Kyber Crystal necklace later on in today's show. So I think we'll address that question later. But Dan, do you have that image? Can we play Pin the Scar on Kylo?
What we're gonna do? So let me just bring this up. We got big Kylo Ren face right here, and then I have a nice selection of lovely scars that have popped up onto the screen. And now each of us, we can just take one of these and put it wherever we want. And I thought, James, as our guest, if you want to pick your first scar and tell me where you want that on Kylo Ren's face.
I want to put it right over his mouth and chin.
Mouth and chin. Do you want the stitches or the classic anime scar or the gruesome...
Let's go anime. I want anime scar.
Anime scar. All right, so we're going to do the anime scar on his mouth and chin, like a shh kind of a message.
Yeah.
Speak no evil. All right, Josh, where would you like your scar?
Oh, man. You know what? It's tough. I was actually going to take that myself, but just because Adam Driver's ears are so big and goofy, let's put one of the scars on his ear, the ear that's sticking out there.
All right, we'll give him the stitches.
Yeah.
We'll move that over, and we'll make it... it's like they stapled it back onto his head. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
And then we'll just go with a classic. You know what? We'll go Team Scargate. Move it back to the original position. Just stupid X across his face. And if you don't do it that way, I'll never watch Star Wars again.
Yep.
You're not the only
done.
one.
Yeah,
I
right?
know, dude. I'm done. Watch this movie tank. Like, watch this movie tank because of the scar. I'll like literally. Oh man, that'd be amazing. That'd be absolutely terrific. Oh man, so there you guys have it. You're looking at the new Kylo Ren image. This is official Lucasfilm stuff. Yep. So
leaked, hacked out of their promotional.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, that was awesome, and that's the kind of flavor Anime Dan brings. I didn't prompt that. This is his idea, so he's got goofs for days. Awesome. All right, guys, we're gonna move into our next topic, which is going to be Supermans. So, if you haven't seen Batman v Superman, well, to be honest, you're a really lucky person, and I envy you. But if somehow you haven't seen it and you don't want it to be spoiled for you, turn away now. Oh, you're still here? Okay, here's the spoiler. Superman dies at the end of that movie. It's crazy, I know. Honestly, I thought it was a pretty bold move, or at least I thought that right up until the dirt shakes on his coffin, because yes, we all know Superman is coming back. He's died in the comics before. It's a thing, but all of the promotional material for Justice League has been absent of Supes, which is kind of interesting. It actually was getting to the point where I was kind of questioning how much of the big blue Boy Scout was actually going to be in the film. And we recently got on a website our first glimpse of Superman in official promotional material. So this kind of brings up the question, what kind of a role do we think Superman will play in this film? How much of the film is he going to be in exactly? And we're going to kind of roll into this topic here. So, Dan, what kind of a role do you think Superman will play in Justice League? How much of Supes do you think we're going to be getting?
It's really tough to tell, especially from this trailer. There's so little information in this trailer. They killed him off at the end of Batman vs. Superman, which I thought was a terrible idea, because again, they were just jamming another story element into this movie that didn't need jammed with any more story elements.
Sure.
And now they have to deal, I don't know, nobody thinks that movie was a roaring success. Now they have to deal with the aftermath of that in jamming into this movie. And I don't know. I don't know if they're... I read something that says because we saw no images of Superman fighting the demons, and we saw no images of Superman talking with the crew, that he's going to be revealed in like a third act twist, or like a rising action where it's like, Superman's back, now we can finally win, kind of a thing. I don't know. It's tough to tell.
Yeah.
They might just
you're right.
Throw him right back in at the beginning, and they just edited around it in the trailer.
Yeah, that'd be actually amazing if they were able to do that, because honestly, it was getting to the point, like I said, in the promotion, that's like, man, there's not a lot of Superman in this movie. Personally, I have heard some rumors. There's rumors on both sides. So there's like, I think about a couple days ago, an article ran, and I forget on what major news site, but it essentially said, in Justice League, we're going to have the resurrection of Superman, and it will be the Superman we all know and love. And I find that kind of funny, because the other rumor that I've heard is that he's coming back Injustice style, that he's going to wake up and be fucking furious and be like dictator demon level Superman, more like the Superman we got in that flashback forward vision thing that Bruce Wayne has, where, you know, he's fighting all the parademons and he's killing people with machine guns, you know, like Batman would totally do. So I don't know, man. My personal feelings, I honestly would not mind if they came back and did bad guy Superman, like maybe somehow Steppenwolf is able to kind of co-opt his consciousness or something, and all the heroes have to beat Superman, which would be kind of dope. I don't know, James, what do you think, man? How much Superman do you think we're gonna get in Justice League?
I don't think that much. I heard that early, way beyond. I heard that he was not in the first part, because is it still 2 parts, Justice League?
No, well,
it's just
well, they were definitely going to do another film, but they kind of backpedaled on their original plan to do part 1 and part 2 and shoot it together. So they're just making the first one.
Okay, so way back when it was supposed to be 2, I heard that Superman wasn't supposed to come in until the end, or But then that changed to your point. I think both of the things that you heard, both stories you heard, might be accurate because I think he's going to come back as the villain at first, and then he'll transform into the Superman that we all know and love from whatever. So I think he's going to be the villain. I think you're right with the Steppenwolf part of it. I think that's how it's going to play out. Because what's cooler than having your villains fight Superman? And also, I just want. And I am the one person in the world that actually enjoyed Batman and Superman.
Oh, you're the guy?
I'm the guy.
For you.
I'm right here. I actually didn't mind. I will say though, to your point about the machine guns, I was watching it and all I thought about in my head was the Man of Steel. Everyone's problem with that movie was that Superman killed Zod. Like that was, I mean, not everyone's problem, but that was a huge topic, right? It was kind of like Scargate. He killed Zod. And now, so like, okay, well, they're going to correct all, and they corrected the ending with Metropolis being destroyed. They're like, this is what the movie's about. We're making that the plot. I'm like, okay, so you're correcting that. And now you have Batman killing everybody, which is like the one thing, like, all the Christopher Nolan movies, no killing. So now he's slaughtering people left and right. And I didn't so much have a problem with it because, it's, what is it, But at the same time, it's like, you're going to just piss more people off by doing this.
I know.
Wasn't there
kind
an
of
executive?
into it.
Yeah, like wasn't there an executive saying, just just put the gun down, use a batarang, tie them up with rope,
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of weird. The whole situation with the DC thing, and this is like a recurring theme at the Den of Nerds. We constantly talk about this.
Yeah.
Real quick, I do want to address the chat. Katrina says, "I want less Superman, more Wonder Woman, and well done, Wonder Woman, please." I can totally get behind that. I thought Wonder Woman was the best part of Batman v Superman. She's fantastic, and I love that character. So I'm with you there. Ruben says that he enjoyed BVS as well. So you know
nice. There's two of us out there. It's awesome.
Yeah, you found a friend. You found a friend. It's kind of cool that you mentioned maybe both of those rumors are correct. Like, what if he is the bad guy at first, and that kind of shakes him out of it, and then he becomes the Superman we've all been looking for. That would be kind of interesting. But yeah, like from the executive standpoint, and the fact that they really had to shift on a dime, because what's interesting is as all of the fallout was happening for BVS, Warner Brothers had literally about 1 week to make a decision to either fire Zack Snyder or move ahead with Justice League. And they decided to move ahead with it, which was interesting. But I guarantee you they made a lot of adjustments to that film. I mean, all we hear about now is the light tone and the humor, and that's what they're really pushing, right? They're trying to go Marvel on us. So, I don't know. Dan, what do you think, man? Like, can both exist? Can we have our cake and eat it too? Can we have a bad guy Superman and then also get the Superman we want?
I think that jamming bad guy Superman in is not the way to go. I think that that's kind of maybe at the very end to set up for the next movie. It's going to be like, oh, battle against Superman. But to my understanding, Superman's death, the lack of the protector of Earth, is kind of the catalyst for the formation of the Justice League. Everyone's like, all right, we gotta stay together because now Superman's gone. And to immediately hit that with, now we have to come together because Superman's back, it feels messy. It feels like pick one and have that be the catalyst for the Justice League to come together, and then have them fight the different threat, the parademons or whatever it is. Like, enough infighting. Let's see the Justice League do something cool.
But it sounds messy, but doesn't that sound like something that a DC film would be?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. If they're trying to keep up the record, then yes.
Yeah.
We're right
big time.
Right on track.
So I want to address something that Ruben just said, because I think it's kind of a cool point. He's like, what exactly does that mean? Who is the Superman we all know and love? Is he coming out of the grave as Christopher Reeves? And not only is that hilarious, but that's a good point. So I think that, not to go way big into Superman, but I believe that what we're talking about is like the opposite of that Superman from Man of Steel. So here's the thing. So I love Man of Steel, but I look at it as an Elseworld. And because of that, and because of the way they've treated the DC Extended Universe, I look at the whole DC Extended Universe as an Elseworld, which actually makes it easier for me to swallow. So to your question, Ruben, I think that you are kind of onto it. I think that the idea of the Boy Scout, the idea of the Superman that always finds a way, the idea of the most human person on the Justice League that also happens to be an alien refugee, yes, I think that is the Superman that we are looking for. When I say that, that's what I mean by that. James, what do you think, man? Are you a Superman guy? Like, do you like the Boy Scout, or are you not into it?
Man of Steel could be my favorite superhero film.
Oh, wow.
Don't judge me on anything either. It was one that I saw it in the theater. I was like, yeah, that was good. Like, that was my whole thought on it. And then I got it on Blu-ray like way after it came out. Like, no, I wasn't like in a rush to get it or anything. I just, and then one day I was like, I really want to watch that Man of Steel. And I put it on and I watched it. I watched parts of it every day for about 2 months. I just would watch it. And I just fell in love with the film. I was like, this is actually really enjoyable to me as a personal preference. I do like Superman. I think, though, he's so difficult. He's not difficult. I think the film industry for years has tried to overcomplicate him in a lot of ways. He's not difficult. Everyone's like, well, he has no weakness. He does have weaknesses. It's not just kryptonite.
Right.
It's the human race is his biggest weakness of all.
Right,
which is one of the reasons. One thing I really liked about Man of Steel was he has to kill Zod. It's Zod or the human race, and Zod exploded his biggest weakness, which is that. And if you don't have kryptonite, it's got to be people. He's got to look after people. So I think overcomplicating Superman is the biggest problem they've had. He doesn't have to be a Boy Scout. He shouldn't go around killing anybody either. Well, everybody does in the new DC movies, though. But he should just be a middle ground to what they have. He should smile more, and the movie should be a little bit more colorful as well.
Right.
Yeah, a little more color.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Dan, what do you think, man? Are you, you've been doing research because you're doing a lot. Actually, your What the Fuck video was about Superman, and you've been digging in for the next video. So, what are your feelings about Superman? Like, because there's a lot of Superman haters out there. People hate him because he's the Boy Scout. So, like, what are your thoughts?
Real quick, my apologies because someone's weed whacking right now. So if that comes in, sorry about that. I'm cutting my mic out. But like Justin would say, Superman, you either love him or hate him. There's very few people who are like, I don't care about Superman. They're either like, he has all the powers and he has no weaknesses and blah, I don't want it. Or, in my opinion, if you've read maybe a good Superman story or two, you go right over. Because I love, my judge is I usually check out some people's top villains, and if they're cool, then I'm going to like that hero more. Superman has awesome villains, and he wouldn't have cool villains if Superman couldn't be combated. Some of them do it by having their own planet and army, like Darkseid does, and then some of them do it with riddles and magic, like Mr. Mixclicks. So there's a whole bunch of ways to do it. Yes. Yeah, and you wouldn't have to if you picked and I know maybe this is too much to ask of a superhero movie these days, but if we picked a badass villain and took Superman and made him just fight that villain and stop an evil plan and save a bunch of people who were then happy at the end of it, it would be an awesome Superman movie. And then you just smash it with visual effects, just beat the shit out of it until it looks awesome and cool and big. That would be a killer Superman movie. I'm a little tired of super broody DC superhero, it's raining.
It's raining.
It's raining.
I know. How does Superman even have power in the DC Extended Universe? There's
no sun.
I know.
That's a good one.
It doesn't even make any sense. But yeah, real quick, before we move on to the topic, I'll say I'm a huge Superman fan. It's actually one of my favorite books I'm currently reading. And Mr. Mixelplick actually plays a cool role in the current run on Action Comics, so check that out. But if you're on the fence about Superman or you're a Superman hater, go find online where Mark Waid, writes a lot of Marvel stuff, but go find Mark Waid talking about Superman. It's incredibly informative, and he explains why Superman is the best hero of all time. So I think that's kind of cool. I would definitely go check that out if you want more information about Supes. But let us move on to our next topic. We're getting back to Star Wars. This topic may end up taking the majority of today's show, and I'm totally okay with that because this is an awesome topic. It was recently reported that Luke Skywalker will have a very unique necklace in The Last Jedi. The necklace is apparently wooden with a red Kyber crystal in it. Now, the popular theory is that this Kyber crystal belonged to Darth Vader and was, in fact, a part of his lightsaber. Now, once again, it's super cool that James is here, particularly because, James, you and Brock actually talked about this in a podcast a couple weeks back, and it was blowing my mind. You guys were talking about the possibility of Luke having his father lightsaber and the possibility of him purifying it into a white or gray saber. And I loved this idea. I actually almost stole it and did a ton of videos about it because I thought it was really, really cool. But now that this official news is out about the necklace, I need to talk to you about this. And this is a little disclaimer to everybody who's watching right now. It's about to get real nerdy in here. So, James, talk about the technique of purifying, talk about the Kyber crystals, and talk about this necklace.
So for those that don't know, the purifying of the crystals is something that came out under the new Disney era of Star Wars in the Ahsoka novel, which is a young adult novel. They say that now that, because we all know that the bad guys in Star Wars have red lightsabers,
yes,
which are red, and they're red Kyber crystals. And in the old expanded universe, they were synthetic crystals. So now what they've done is they say that in order for a Sith to get a Kyber crystal, he has to, or she has to, kill a Jedi, and then when they touch the crystal, physically touch, it can't be with the lightsaber because we've all asked that question and we were shut down.
Yeah.
You touch the crystal, it bleeds red.
Right.
And that's how the Sith have red Kyber crystals. But if a Jedi is to defeat a Sith and they touch the red crystal, it will purify it, and then it'll become a white crystal, and that's why characters like Ahsoka have white lightsabers. So that's that whole. That's how that works now. And now Luke having this red one and it being Vader's is that is a thought. Yeah, and like you said, a few weeks ago, Brock and I spoke about how it would be cool if Luke had a white lightsaber and it was Vader's lightsaber.
Yep.
But can I just spin this for a second? Can I take this in a different direction? I was talking to one of the viewers of Rebel Scum Podcast, Winter Star, because I really think Obi-Wan's going to be playing a factor at somehow in The Last Jedi or 9. Like at some point, Obi-Wan's making a huge comeback, and it would be kind of cool if you see Anakin and Obi-Wan's lightsabers going head to head once again. But what if that crystal? Because we don't know what the wood is that's holding this crystal, correct? No one really has described it. So would it not be cool if at some point we know through these 30 years the comics are telling us that Luke went looking for Jedi artifacts for 30 years? After Return of the Jedi. That's what the new expanded universe is telling us. What if he went to Mustafar, found Vader's castle, went in there, and he sees all of Vader's trophies, and one of them is Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber.
Yeah.
But Vader has touched the crystal on purpose to make it bleed because he hates Obi-Wan so much he wants to destroy that crystal. And what if Luke grabs that, but he places it in the wood to keep it red as maybe a reminder of who he could become? Like that. So keeps his old master with him and keeps his future hidden from him. I mean, it could be Vader's, but it could also be Obi-Wan's crystal.
Yeah, that's true. So that's very interesting because actually we don't know for sure that it's Vader's Kyber crystal. I think that's something they're reporting. They're heavily implying that. But
it's also, if you read Aftermath, the first Aftermath novel, the Acolytes of the Beyond get a red lightsaber, which we've all kind of believed to be Vader's lightsaber. So then you'd have another story of why would you mention that if it's not that? So it's confusing, but it's either, I think it's going to be either Vader's or Obi-Wan's.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. I think it's interesting for a couple of different reasons. Like one, if he kept it, let's just say it's Vader's. So if it's Vader's Kyber and he has it, why would he not purify it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question to me. It's like, why would he? Because maybe he doesn't know how to do it, but we assume he's literally building, like the back end library of the Jedi. He's like becoming the carrier of that knowledge, and even beyond Yoda's Jedi. So you would assume he would know how to do this, how to do the process, right? Yeah. And perhaps he even had an exchange with Ahsoka. We really don't know that, but if he has the ability to purify it, why wouldn't he do that? Because here's the other aspect that I think is interesting. The Kybers have a sentient, like they have a consciousness. So in the Ahsoka novel, the Sith crystals in those sabers are literally singing to Ahsoka from across the galaxy. And she hears it and is drawn to it and then purifies them. So it's almost like Luke, you could imagine this Kyber crystal being like, please purify me. And Luke just being like, nope.
But what if Luke can't
Right. Because he's not pure.
Yeah, and that being if Vader's crystal, what if Luke just can't because he's not pure and because he's got too much Vader in him?
Right.
He just can't.
Yeah. I didn't even think it was like Luke's too corrupt to do it. I was just thinking like, what if it's like real hard? What if like Vader like corrupted the shit out of that crystal and he's like, I'm not enough of a Jedi Master to be able to think through this one. But then Rey, who, you know, in one movie is just as good a Jedi as most Jedis, can probably pick that crystal up and just like turn it white pretty easy.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. That's an interesting point. I do want to address the chat here real quick because Joe asks, doesn't Snoke have a necklace with a black Kyber crystal? It's actually a ring. He has a ring with a big old black Kyber crystal, which is a really cool point. And so that's a whole thing too, is what does the black Kyber mean? I have a feeling that black Kyber only exists in the unknown regions, and that Tar Vizsla, who was the first Mandalorian Jedi who built the Darksaber, that maybe he was conquesting out in the unknown regions and received that. And also, Ruben asks, Luke did take 2 Force trees at the end of Shattered Empire. Maybe that's the wood holding the Kyber. That's actually an interesting point, Ruben, because it was recently announced the Lucasfilm Story Group is suggesting that the Force trees are the new version of holocrons. That holocrons now, the old EU function of holocrons, and actually they're very much in Rebels as well, that the Force trees themselves are going to act as the new holocrons in the continuing saga films. So it's very possible that the wood that he is surrounding that crystal with will indeed be from a Force tree. Dan, what do you think about that, man?
That's awesome. That's just such like a great little nugget of nerd information. Like it's about lightsabers. It's in the hands of Luke Skywalker, and we just get to go kind of crazy about it. And I think even the fact that whose Kyber crystal it is, we don't even know.
Right.
It's way too early to say anything for sure. But it's awesome. It's super cool that he has the potential to make a lightsaber. What's the story behind that? What did he go through to get it? Who does he need to bring it to? Why does he still have it? Maybe it's just for memory. Maybe he's just going to touch and be sad sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, it might not even culminate into something big, but it probably will. They're doing a pretty good
Luke's
job
whole
with these.
journey, there's so much that we don't know about Luke's whole journey. And at the end of the day, like, I love watching Return of the Jedi, and I love watching where they're burning Vader's corpse, and Luke is just looking at it. And I just try to get in the head of Luke as he's watching his father's body burned, and everyone on Endor is celebrating the shit out of it. They are super fucking happy that Vader's being burned, and they're like, yes! And then what does it feel like for Luke watching that, knowing that A, he probably can't just tell everybody that Vader was his father, because he doesn't. We know he doesn't tell everybody that. And also, he can't really express to everybody that Vader turned at the end. He just can't. It's not. Nobody would believe him. He does tell Leia, but James, what do you think, man? What's popping off to you? I know you're thinking.
I'm thinking. Just to go back to when you're talking about the Kyber crystal around his neck and how he can't purify it. I'm thinking Rey says that she's dreamt about an island and all that stuff, right? Or what? What if that's the Kyber crystal calling to her, the one around Luke's neck?
Right.
What if that is Vader's crystal, and it's calling to Rey?
Right.
That's what I was thinking. Not to get off topic from what you were saying.
No,
That's
beautiful.
When you guys were talking about it, I was like, what if that's that's what's drawing her to the island? Is that could bring up a whole other, who knows what's going on there? You know, I still think we see her training with the blue with Anakin's saber. I still think that could be much like we see Finn with that saber and for the Force Awakens marketing. That's not the saber she's going to end up with in that movie. That's what I think. And I don't know what I think. It maybe double-sided. It could be blue and red or blue and green saber.
I remember you guys were talking about that. I think in what was it, 39? The podcast. Yeah, and I love that idea. I'd love to see a double-bladed lightsaber with different colors. That's dope. That would be an awesome idea. Real quick, too, the idea popped into my head that technically Obi-Wan has 2, depending on how you look at it, 4 red Kybers from the blades of Darth Maul that he cut down to protect Luke on Tatooine. So when Luke goes back in the deleted scene of Return of the Jedi and he's building his green saber, it's possible that he had anywhere between 2 to 4 red Kybers there that Old Man Ben had taken. You know what I mean? Which is interesting. Yeah, and also there's a good question from Ruben here. How do you guys feel about maybe the fact that Luke has become a Bendu? He's maybe learned that the Sith and Jedi both corrupted the teachings, and he's willing to train Rey but not push her to one side or the other. And Joe says he rewatched Force Awakens, and he's even more convinced that the Jedi Temple was on Jakku. So, Dan, what do you think about those comments? Anything popping off to you?
Totally agree with the first one. That's my whole thought for this movie. Yeah, maybe like this is my 51% thought that they're going to move away from the Jedi and rename themselves, and he's going to be like, all right, this is why it didn't work out with Kylo Ren, and here's what we got to do. Then 49%, it's going to be way too close of a remake of Empire Strikes Back. Really hoping that's not the case. But
right.
I definitely think they should go with go for it.
Interesting. And what do you think about the Jedi Temple? Like, he's referring to Luke's Jedi Temple.
You know, I don't know. I haven't read any of the books regarding like the remains of those ships on Jakku or anything, so I know that in the books and everything, Jakku is a very important focal point. Just from having seen, the movies, I feel like, there's probably something more to that planet. Like, they're going to have to go back to Jakku at some point. Like, for Tatooine, it was Anakin's mother. They had to go back, and then he had to have his, emotional episode. So in this, the draw could be Luke's temple, or the first thing Luke says to Rey is, we're going somewhere you never wanted to see again. And they have to go right back to Jakku. So, that would be interesting.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I actually get the feeling that the temple was on Tatooine. That's what I think. I think that he would. Yeah, I think he would go back to Tatooine and support it. And this is something that you've said this before, James. You and Brock have this idea that Anakin still looms over the whole story. That essentially everything that's going on now and that will go on in the future saga films is all ties back to Anakin, that he's essentially the key to the whole thing, which is kind of true. So what did you think about those comments, and where do you think the Luke's Jedi Temple was? I
like the idea of Tatooine. I don't think it's on Jakku. I think reading Empire's End and all those books, there's something else with Jakku.
Right.
That, I mean, we've kind of seen some of it, but some of it, I don't know if it's important, but I don't think it's as important as we initially thought. Like, it's a different type of importance, right? Luke being more of a Bendu, I completely makes so much sense to me. He says the Jedi, it's time for the Jedi to end. It's not because he's going to kill the Jedi. He's not evil, which I know people love to go in that. People want Luke to turn so bad. I can't understand that. I remember when The Force Awakens, when they were shooting it, there was a rumor that he was the bad guy.
That he was Kylo under the mask.
Well, there was that too. Yeah, and I just remember talking to a friend of mine who loves Star Wars, and I was like, how does that make sense? Like, you've just ruined 3 movies if you make him turn. Like, the original trilogy means nothing now if Luke is your villain. So I think you're completely right that he's learning that the Jedi way is wrong, because as I said on the Rebel Scum show, that the prequels, love them or hate them, they have the Jedi, and the Jedi have their council, and they kind of believe in this structure. And I think they lost sight of the Force and how to actually utilize it in the right way. And I think Luke is going to learn that through possibly the Journal of the Wills, the bookshelf that he has, that maybe that's even made out of one of those Force trees, is that the bookshelf that you see with the light shining on the books and the hand touching the Jedi Order logo.
Right.
So that's where I'm thinking too. I think Luke's totally gray. I know, and Pablo Hidalgo has said that gray Jedi is not real. It doesn't exist.
Well, there's no such thing as a gray Jedi in canon, is what he said.
But that doesn't mean. But gray has been mentioned in
several
books.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, and if you're a great Jedi,
he's probably,
you're not a Jedi.
Yeah,
I think the Jedi. The word Jedi with gray doesn't make sense, because you can't be gray and be a Jedi. Gray is in the middle.
Yeah, it's kind of a paradox.
Jedi,
right.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
but I love your idea of Tatooine having his. I love his temple being there. That I can get behind that.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me question it is the rain. right? Because in the scene, and like, here's the thing, like, there's so much we don't know, and I've heard so many different takes on this whole thing. But the Force vision, or the Force back, as people call it, that scene where Kylo and the Knights of Ren in the rain are standing over those bodies, in the original script, that was going to be the massacre of Luke's temple. I don't think that is what it actually is. So what people refer to is that when the lightning flashes, you can see a temple on the right side of that shot. And I've talked about this in videos before. People believe that that is Luke's temple. But there were some changes made. Like, originally there were props. There were a bunch of lightsaber hilts that were going to be in that scene. And they took them out of that scene. They decided, no, we're not going to have those. And they shifted the name of that guy that gets stabbed through with the Raiden-looking hat.
Yeah.
He's now called Clan Leader. He's not a Jedi. So we don't even know if that was the destruction of Luke's temple. I actually believe that scene is not something that had happened. I think it's something that will happen. So I think that it's possible that she saw the future when she looked just as much as she saw the past. But any last thoughts on this before we close the book on our Star Wars topics for the day? Dan, you got anything that comes to mind?
I'm just excited to see more different lightsabers, more colors, different ways to arrange the blades. I love that. So keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure. I want to see yellow more. I'm currently reading the Old Republic Legends line by John Jackson Miller, and I believe the character's name is Zesh. And man, I just love the yellow lightsaber. Something about it. I really like it. I think when I get my custom one, I'm going to do yellow. So I'm totally into that. Yeah, I'm totally into that. James, any last things you want to say about the Star Wars, as it were?
Yeah, they did make a point to say that the yellow lightsaber is no longer in canon. And
other than the guards. The guards have it.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. But Pablo, somebody said something about it not being, or maybe the Old Republic one. But they could be going there. Yellow's coming. I think yellow's coming. We're gonna see.
Yeah.
Yellow. I'd like to see a white one on the screen, even though we kind of did it in New Hope. Anakin's is kind of white in that one. Right. Yeah. I think. Yeah, that was. Is it December yet? That's all.
I know, right?
Is
it December yet?
Yeah. I was kind of hoping during the Last Jedi panel at Celebration that they'd be like, "You want a trailer? Forget it. Here's the movie." And they just showed us a rough cut. Like, some of the effects are done, but it was supposed to come out in May, so they can't be. Yeah. I mean, they got to be really close to completion on a final, like, the effects that are done. Maybe a couple reshoots. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and everything I've heard, look, everybody says the movie's dope. Like, there's nobody I've never even heard like any kind of an inkling or any rumor or anything that suggests that this movie isn't anything but just dope. So definitely looking forward to it. So we're going to close the book on Star Wars topics for the day. But guys, if you want more information about Star Wars, go check out the Rebel Scum Podcast channel on YouTube. James and Brock do podcasts once a week, right? You guys hit them every week?
We do it every week. Our schedules. Usually Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday you can find it. We have other shows too where you were on the debate, which is Vote No Confidence, which is a fun one, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So if you're like me and you can't get enough Star Wars content, go check their channel out. It's quite awesome. So, all right, guys, let's move on to the last topic of the day, and this would be the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A lot of buzz been coming out with some things that have been said about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Kevin Feige recently said in an interview that films beyond the Infinity War movies may be very different than what they currently have in the Marvel library. He even went so far as to say they may not have phases with their future films. This opened up speculation of the future of the MCU. Will they reboot after Infinity War? Will they recast these characters or re-sign the contracts of their current slate of actors? These questions and more have come back to our consciousness after hearing these statements from our Lord and Savior, Kevin Feige. So, Dan, my question to you, do these comments about the lack of phases in the future Marvel films, do they worry you, or what do you think is going to happen after the Infinity War movies?
It's not, I wouldn't say worrying per se. They're working on 8 projects right now in this phase, like at the same time. This is not for quite a while. So
Right, right.
For us to expect that this is 22 movies, I think, like, at the moment. Like, with the next one, it's going to be 22 movies, and then there's still the next 7, so it's going to be right around 30 movies for these first couple of phases. It would be kind of silly to expect that it's going to follow, like, in 10 years, there's going to be the Iron Man 15 coming out, and it's going to be the same kind of thing, Iron Man on a different adventure. They're going to have to change something at some time, whether it's actors or which heroes they're focusing on or something. They're going to have to change it up. And I think that these answers are vague and nebulous enough that he's like, we got 8 things in the works right now. And then we also have Spider-Man Homecoming 2 planned out and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 already planned out. We don't have phases 5, 6, 7, and 8 like written down in a timeline infographic yet, but it could be different. It could be fairly the same with different actors, and they want to rebrand it so as to not feel like they're selling out or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that he did say in those comments too, like, our focus is on the films we are currently working on, which is totally fair. And like you said, man, if they got 8 in the tank right now, that's crazy. Like that's more than I think the DC cinematic universe even has lined up. You know what I mean? So yeah, like, and look, I'm a huge fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I promise you someday I'm going to write a book about the Marvel Cinematic Universe because I'm so fascinated by it, what it was able to accomplish, what it did, the chances they took and everything. So I'm absolutely fascinated by it. But that the reality is coming. Like, they have to do something to make it different, to make it fresh. I don't know if reboot is the answer, but after this phase, there has to be some kind of a shakeup because even diehard fans of the MCU like myself get a little bit burnt out with the whole process. Like, Doctor Strange to me was a film that was okay, but because it was so beholden to fitting into their slate and, figuring out the future of the phases and everything like that, I think that it seriously lacked in a lot of ways. And their formula is kind of getting a little tedious as well. So there has to be something done. But James, what do you think, man? Like, do you think they're going to do phase films? Do you think they're re-signing these actors? What are we looking at after the phase 3 films?
I think they'll re-sign, but it won't be a 7-picture deal. It'll be just when we need you, can you show up? I think it'll still be a phase. They might not call it a phase, but it will be what it is. For me, when I look at like the Marvel movies, I am kind of getting tired of them always having to connect in some way now. Like, I watched the movies and I really liked Ant-Man. I really enjoyed it. And I really liked Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy was probably my favorite one.
Right.
And Guardians of the Galaxy has nothing to do with anything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at all. I mean, it's still in the same universe, obviously, but they weren't tied down to, well, we have to throw Captain America in and Thor has to show up. And like you said, Doctor Strange I enjoyed, but it was, yes, they're so tied down on bringing them all together that maybe the best approach is just make your movie. Make right. This, because when I I don't read comics as much as I used to, but when I was a kid, I always rode my bike to the comic shop once a week. Like, I'd always go to the comic shop, buy all the comics, and I would get Spider-Man and Batman and all, Wolverine and Punisher and all that. And then every once in a while you'd go and you would be like, oh my God, Wolverine and the Hulk are on the cover together, and you would buy it, right?
Right.
And I think like if they just made the movie, you make this movie and that movie, and then all of a sudden, like, guess what? They're together. It's like, oh, like Thor Ragnarok looks amazing because Hulk just shows up in it, and I don't think it's going to be too tied to anything, right? If you just had 3 Thor movies that had nothing to do with anything, and then all of a sudden the 4th one, Hulk shows up, we would all go bananas for it because we weren't expecting it, first of all. So I think that might be the way they go with the Phase 4 or new Phase 1A or whatever they end up calling it. Yeah, that's for me what I would think.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what they're going to do. And, the other end of this, too, is like, well, what's Kevin Feige going to do? He's been doing this for, 10, 11, 12 years now. I mean, I'm not saying that he is getting burnt out because he's got a great team, and I think that he's able to take that workload on, and he knows that the legacy's on the line, so he's putting it in. But my thing is, he doesn't want to do this forever. He can't. He physically can't do this forever. So what do they do? There's all sorts of options. Look, I think that they need to They need to do what Star Wars is thinking about doing and backing it up with the main films. And so, like, if they take a 5-year break between the next saga, that gives them a lot of room to build up anticipation again, to fill out little things of of the canon or whatever. So what if Thanos? I mean, potentially Thanos is going to beat all of them, and if they follow the comic book line, he's going to kill half the people in the universe, take over, become an entity, and then Gamora will save the day by reclaiming the gauntlet and all this other stuff. So craziness could definitely be afoot. There's opportunity because of the gauntlet controls all of reality for a reboot to make sense in the story as well. But I don't know. Part of the charm is the way that they connect. So it's kind of a tough issue. I'll say this, though. The biggest bummer is that they're not going to do, if they really don't do Phase 4, a lot of people were thinking Phase 4, Fantastic Four. It's a match made in heaven. Like, them bringing the Fantastic Four in could be the juice. It could be the revitalization we've been looking for. Focus on that for a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Inhumans. That's a little pseudo-movie television combo thing. So, I don't know. Dan, any last thoughts on the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I mean, what do you think that they need to do to keep it fresh after these movies?
Tough to say. I think that's really more on a movie-to-movie standpoint. I think it's possible to make more fresh-feeling movies that still have connectivity to other movies in your universe. Just a little bit more of different stuff. Different settings would change it up. Don't fight the bad guy on top of a skyscraper at the end. Just changing things so they're not the same in every movie will do a lot to make the movies feel different. And then beyond that, I think that idea of using the gauntlet to reboot reality to kind of explain why things are different after this phase, 0 out of 10. Terrible idea. Imagine you're sitting on the couch next to somebody like in a couple years, and then you watch the end of Avengers Infinity War Part 2 or whatever, and they're like, wait, what happened? You're like, oh, dude, so the gauntlet warped reality, and then see in this DVD box, this Blu-ray box, the next one, how it's like different people. That's what they look like after reality got all warped by the gauntlet. So it explained it, and they're like, it's just like, that's the cheesiest shit. So don't do that. Don't. You're already connecting 30 movies together. Don't worry about connecting to someone else's movie after this. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's a fair point. What was that very popular show that ended and it was all a dream? It's kind of what it feels like, right? Like it would negate all that they have done before it if they reboot that way. Yeah, be kind of tough. Any last thoughts, James, on the Marvels?
I think if Thanos wins, that'd be awesome for me. Their villains are the weakest parts of their films, for sure, right? Mm-hmm. So you have one that finally defeats them all, and then I don't know, where do you go from there?
I mean, where do you go from Thanos?
This is the decision Marvel's at now, though, is are they just ending their story now, which means all the Iron Mans, are they done? Whether they die or not, are those stories done? And then you move on to these ones, which would be, it's not a reboot because now you're going to follow new characters that we haven't met yet. And maybe you have, a Spider-Man or Ant-Man or someone new still kind of go, although Spider-Man might not be back in the MCU.
Yeah,
but
I know.
It might be, but somebody that kind of comes around, and then, but it's still your phase 1 of this new era of superheroes going on. That seems, I don't know. Iron Man, they make so much money off of Robert Downey Jr. How do you not keep it going?
I know. Well, he should probably stay. I mean, they'd be kind of dumb to not have.
Maybe he's the guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know what else too is we haven't seen Infinity War, so we don't know. Look, Feige is promising the biggest, craziest. It's a culmination of everything they've done, and he's promising the biggest, craziest thing you've ever seen. So there's that. So maybe after that. My last thought on it is what they really should do is just go back to personal, small-scale stories, a little bit more of a smaller film, and then maybe occasionally do a big crossover and bring them all back in, which I think could be a cool model. But, that's going to do it for us today on the Nerdy News Hour. Thank you for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome. It was a good time, man. Tell the people one last time. Tell the peeps, where can they find you online?
You can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/Rebel Scum Podcast, or just type in Rebel Scum Podcast, and we usually pop up. We have a little logo with a stormtrooper. You can't miss us.
Absolutely. Dan, where can the peoples find you?
I'm Anime Dan. You can find me right here on the Den of Nerds. I'll be back in my What the Fuck Superman series very soon, I promise.
Awesome. And you guys can find me obviously here at the Den of Nerds. Josh likes comics with an X on Instagram. I do a lot of cool stuff there. And yeah, thank you for joining us. And that is all we've got for now. See ya.